fine.
Well, you could do a wager with Peyton where who the winner is given like a Five Below Squishmallow or something.
Ooh, you know what? I would have to win. I would have to win. I'm sorry. I gotta
Yes, I
get
see.
that.
I see the backdrop of Squishmallow. How many do you have?
Listen. I should not have access to adult money. And I also justify it because I'm like, oh, it's going in my, it's a business expense, Artsy.
It is the backdrop. It is for your brand. I absolutely it is truly the whole thing about self-acceptance, you know? I totally no, I hear you. I hear you. Hello, friends, and welcome to Gamers Gab, the podcast by gamers for gamers. I'm Artsy from the Artsy Gamer. I make art, I play games, and I encourage others to do the same. And joining me for this amazing episode revolving self-acceptance and content creation as an ongoing journey is Siana from Siana Crossing. So Siana, before we get into it, if you would, give us a quick introduction about your sweet, lovely self and your pronouns, please, and thank you.
Yes, my name is Siana. As Artsy said, I use she, her pronouns, and I make Animal Crossing New Horizons and other like cozy gaming plushy squishmallow content here on YouTube. And I'm so excited to be here, so thank you.
So, friends, the reason why I wanted Siana to be on Gamers Gab has to do with the journey to self-acceptance, which I think is a lifelong experience. I think that throughout our lives, specifically for people with uteruses and specifically for BIPOC people, that we really do struggle with sharing our voices in a way that allows for the celebration and the acknowledgement of a wide range of experiences. And Siana, I think it must have been at least a year ago, where Siana had shared a few tidbits about the journey of specifically, I think, the love of your hair and how someone had the audacity to come into your stream and like talk smack. And then also sharing your recent diagnosis with POTS. And I just thought, wow, what a vulnerable moment to share and to be unabashedly celebrating the fact that you did that. So I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about that, but also I wanted to hear about your journey with content creation, especially with gaming, and how that kind of coincides. So what was your goal with gaming content in the beginning, and how does that, interrelate to the open discussions about personal acceptance?
I think that, so I've talked about this a couple times on my channel before. My very first video that I posted on this channel was an island tour, and it was called like my super simple island tour or something. I basically posted it because at the time it was like May of 2020, right when Animal Crossing was like popping, happening. Everybody was posting their island tours, like 5-star island tours. They were beautiful. They were terraformed amazingly. People were decorating in ways I didn't even know was possible. And that got me feeling like a little bit insecure about my own island. I was like, oh, like mine's 5 stars, but it looks nothing like, like these individuals that I'm seeing, which is, I mean, they were amazing. Like kudos to them, but also I couldn't relate. And so I kind of just figured like if I felt like that, there had to be other people who were also in the same boat, comparing their islands, like as silly as it sounds, just like comparing their islands to whatever they see online. And so I wanted to upload mine to show that like, hey, mine's 5 stars and it's not as like elaborate and fantastic as these other ones, but like that's also okay. You can be less than average, you can be average, and that's your island's fine. Like as long as you're having a good time, that's all that really matters. And I think that kind of like coincides with the like self-acceptance journey, just because I could use that same argument that I used for my island kind of for myself or for other people who may not feel like quote unquote good enough. And it's like, listen, you don't have to be like all these other people in order to be good, to be fine, to be okay. Everyone's unique, everyone's beautiful, everyone has something different to bring to the table, and that's totally okay. And it's not going to look the same as the next person. So
No, I absolutely agree. I think a lot of people come into my streams specifically about like, wow, you're a really good artist. I thank you. I don't often agree, but thank you. And it was more just like how there's almost this sense of intimidation where they see me further along in my journey than they are, and they feel like, well, I can't start if this is where you're at. And I think that's what's so incredible is was that purposeful, where that was something that you wanted to define your channel with being, is that, it's okay to not be Pinterest, Instagram, filter perfect, but you still bring something to the table?
Yeah, I think that was, like, the main reason for posting the first video. I also was
Mhm.
just like I kept seeing everybody else post Animal Crossing content, and I was like, "I'm playing, might as well." But, the first tour was definitely, intentionally to hopefully reach others who, felt similarly.
Mhm.
Um, and then going forward, I did a lot of villager hunts just because that's what I thought was fun, but
Mhm.
my my island decorating has stayed I've obviously, like, changed a little bit as time has gone on, but it's stayed very simple,
Mhm.
um, and I think I not only is it just more comfortable for me, I just also feel like it could potentially help somebody else who is stuck in, like, this comparative mindset, and so they can know that, like, "Hey, whatever you do is totally fine. It's great, you're great, everything's welcome here." So,
I find that really fascinating because with content creation, I know that a lot of viewers will ask us, what do you need to do to get started? And I think a lot of us will just say, you just kind of need to do it. But it's really hard because, we do see the final reels with people who are at 100,000, 500,000, a million subscribers who have the cinematic qualities because they can afford it. But what you have this very approachable I was about to say approachable approach. You have this very approachable concept where coming as you are is a worthwhile endeavor to sharing. And I wanted to hear what the positives of that were. And it, like, for mental health, for putting content out there, for the games that you play, what are the positives of that?
I think a big positive for me is just having others either DM me or comment or be in chat and kind of be like, "Hey, I relate to that," or "Hey, I feel the exact same way." I don't know, especially about just, like, the feeling of not being good enough or that sort
Mhm.
of, like, mindset of, like, "Oh, I am not as good as this person. I feel subpar in this aspect of my life," whatever. I feel like it's a very lonely and isolating feeling, and so if I can help someone else feel less alone just kind of in that journey or just help them to kind of move towards the idea that they are good enough and that they are just enough in every sense of the word. I think that's so fulfilling. Even like something as silly as like I get like children who will like comment or DM, they'll be like, "I have the same hair as you," and it makes me feel so nice
Aw.
like to see it on screen, and it's just like to be that for somebody is wild to me, first of all, like, it's insane.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's a really cool opportunity that I don't know, I wouldn't have had that otherwise, so
Is the come as you are content, I don't wanna say is it easier to come by with ideas, but I would like to hear the process of how the content comes to be, like, when you think about it.
I feel like this honestly depends on the week and where I'm at in this
Mhm.
personal, like, self-acceptance journey. I feel like sometimes it's a lot easier to think of an idea or think of, just something that I kind of wanna do and just be like, "You know what? Sounds fun, let's do it."
Mhm.
No real thoughts behind it, just like let's just post it. Let's do this, film it,
Mhm.
edit it, post it. But there are also other weeks where it's like I'm overthinking everything and I'm comparing, what I'm doing to what other people are doing or channel growth or video types. And it's
Mhm.
like I'm not doing it as well as them. So like maybe I shouldn't do it at all. Um, but I think I always kind of just go back to this place, kind of where I was in the very beginning of
Mhm.
posting, where I try to just remind myself that like no matter what I'm posting really, as
Mhm.
long as, like, one person sees it and, feels a little bit better about themselves or just feels something from it, um,
Mhm.
that's a win in my book. So I try not to be too hard on myself about kind of coming up with different ideas, but obviously, I mean, as I'm sure most content creators know, like it's hard to not compare and to kind of like stay in. I don't know, at least for me. For me it is. It's hard it's hard to not compare and to kind of like, yeah, just kind of focus solely on my wants or needs for the
Mm-hmm.
video, kind of,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. I wonder, is getting in your head a negative for you? Because I do think that we did broach upon the fact that, you know, as somebody who is, I consider you a very positive person in the sense that you approach life as a I don't know, like as a many flavors sort of dish where sometimes it's bitter, sometimes it's spicy, sometimes it's sweet, and sometimes it's bland. But all in all, I think that you have this incredible gift of looking at the whole picture and approaching your content similarly. But I know that before we started recording and even as we've kind of broached that topic, that there are negatives to being very open about not only your self-acceptance journey, and I don't want to sound like there's negatives to the content that you create, but I do know that YouTube has a very specific algorithm that is sometimes not kind to the come as you are content, and it can affect the mental health as a result. So what have you felt has been an unexpected negative to the journey that you've taken with content creation as well as self-acceptance publicly?
I think the first kind of negative is fairly normal for, I think, more people who are kinda like me who, like, overthink more or maybe have
Mhm.
anxiety, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, I definitely get in my head, and like you said, like, it's definitely a very negative space if I'm kind of getting in my head and I'm, like,
Mhm.
talking down about myself, which isn't great, and,
Mhm.
you know, that back in that, like, comparative mindset. Um, it's so easy to kind of get to that place because there's always gonna be somebody who's doing different than you, doing more than you, have more
Mhm.
subscribers, more videos, like, that's just that's what happens, that's the internet, you know, it's you're never gonna be, like, the there is no top person, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, it's really, really easy to kind of get trapped in that cycle of thinking where
Mhm.
I'm not doing as much as them, therefore I'm not good enough, that whole and it's just like it's a negative spiral that I think a lot of people, not just me, but I think a lot of, people can get trapped in,
Mhm.
um, and I have a few, like, mental health we're working on our mental health
Mhm.
always, but I do struggle a lot with my mental health, and so
Mhm.
it's definitely a journey in itself and trying
Mhm.
to balance, like, mental health recovery and just, like, being, you know, bettering myself with also the content creation and it all just, like, meshes together,
Mhm.
and it can be a bit messy sometimes to try to, like, untangle the cords that it is.
Well, was it within the last year that you were diagnosed with POTS?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot to do like a quick like what is POTS, but I looked it up a little bit because I wasn't quite sure because you were started talking about on Twitter specifically like, oh, this was a pretty bad POTS day where I had to like sit down and not get up for a little bit and how that impacted your day. So what is POTS?
Okay, so it stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Big, long, crazy word. It basically means that when I go from, like, a laying down or a sitting position to an upright position,
Mm-hmm.
I get this whole host of symptoms. It includes, like, my heart races too fast for what it's meant to, like, going
Mm-hmm.
from that kind of state.
Yeah.
So it can cause, like, dizziness, lightheadedness. In some people, it causes fainting, you can black
Mm-hmm.
out, just a bunch of fun things to deal with
Mm-hmm.
when you kind of are up.
I know that there's a lot of different, and we don't have to get into it if it's too uncomfy, but I know that there's a lot of different life experiences that can cause it. I know that when I was reading up on it a little bit, they said that like pregnancy has an impact on it. Any other slew of I noticed that there was a lot of people with uterus instances where basically just existing as a person with a uterus can result in POTS, unfortunately, just because of how our bodies interact. But has that impacted your self acceptance journey at all?
I honestly think getting a diagnosis helped a little bit and made me feel
Mhm.
like, "Oh, this isn't all in my head, I'm not crazy." Like,
Mhm.
I feel like for a while, I was under the impression that this was normal and that I was kind of just gonna have to, like, deal
Mhm.
with no really relief in sight. So I think getting the diagnosis was both a positive and a negative. A negative because it is, like, a chronic condition, it's a chronic illness, so it's I'm gonna be dealing with this for a long time. The positive being that there are, some remedies to help reduce symptoms
Yeah.
and stuff. But I think, especially at first, like, when I first kind of was talking to my doctor and I blatantly was like, "So this is a chronic thing?" And he said, "Yes." I think that really, like, messed with my head a little bit, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Great, that's so fun for me."
Mhm.
Um,
Love it here. Yeah,
love
no.
it here, it's great to exist. No, but,
Mhm.
I was definitely, like, a little bit down about that and
Yeah.
that I was just like, "Wow, like, I'm broken in so many ways, like, my body can't even figure itself out." So that definitely had, like, an impact. I think I was able to talking with other people who have either had POTS or other chronic illnesses definitely
Mhm.
helped a lot. So I feel like I'm, like, over that little slump right now, but it definitely had an impact for sure.
I know that content creators and streamers in particular have a really hard time with trying to find where the line is about sharing their lives and also like either trauma dumping on their viewers or just wanting to have that space where it's like this is my private experience. And I don't know if I want to consider it a negative, but I do feel that content creators don't feel like they can share it because they have to be, oh, bright and positive and, everything is fine. The world's not on fire. Governments aren't awful. My body isn't like doing things that I can't understand, And so I think the positive from the pandemic has been this resurgence of like, it's okay to be human. It's okay to admit that, no, this is awful and that this sucks. And it's part of this journey that overall is hopefully by the end of it, it's going to go up eventually. And I think that your approaches to the way that you share yourself has been such a beautiful thing to watch, Siana. I know that you were talking about how you weren't sure that, you had anything to share on Gamers Gab, but you do. I mean, the way that you approach content is just a beautiful, beautiful moment on YouTube in a sea of like people just going like and subscribe and all that jazz. Like you have made content creation real and an honest experience. So in addition to the negatives when it comes to self-talk and things, how do you approach your those negative moments and and it doesn't have to be like how do you turn it into a positive, but how do you turn it into, instead of like this big hulking thing that feels so overwhelming, comparing yourself to others, dealing with is it a chronic pain condition or a chronic
Not
illness?
pain, just a chronic I think it's technically a chronic illness or a chronic condition.
A chronic condition. So dealing with a chronic condition where, some days you just have to sit and that's all you got to do. How have you worked through that as part of the overall journey of coming to, I don't know, is the term self-love here? Is it self-acceptance of where you're at? Like what do you think?
I think we are getting to a point where I am self-love is great, self-love is amazing. I just wanna be in a place where I'm, like, self-neutral. I wanna be neutral about myself.
Ooh,
I don't wanna, like, think about
yeah.
myself too much and be like,
Mhm.
I just wanna be at a point where I'm not overthinking every little aspect of myself, just
Mhm.
neutral. A
Mhm.
good little neutral grounds. I think it's hard because I feel like putting it online and kind of talking about this in my content can be a blessing, but also a curse, obviously,
Mhm.
as the internet very much is. Um, I think not only when I talk about it, it helps me to feel better because A, I'm getting it out. I'm not just keeping it inside. And it's like I have, an audience of people who may also understand, may also have similar
Mhm.
things. So not only is it like, I hope helpful to others who potentially like hear me talking about this and kind of I can normalize that and
Mhm.
be that person to maybe like bring it up to somebody who doesn't even know what it is or stuff like that. It also helps me, and it's nice to hear from others who are in the same place in that journey as I am or further along and just kind of hear how they
Mhm.
dealt with it, which I think honestly a lot of the tactics that I use are just what people in chat will tell me. So I feel like I owe a lot to that. But I also feel like again, having a more balanced view is difficult. I do a lot of journaling. So
Mhm.
I don't know if like getting out those like negative kind of bad thoughts about a lot of things. And then it kind of just helps me to see things in a more realistic manner and kind of be like, okay, not everything is this like downhill all the time. Everything's bad. Everything sucks. Like there
Mhm.
are positives. So I do a lot of like, yeah, I do a lot of journaling, like venting journaling, and then also gratitude journaling, just because I feel like it's like a healthy balance to have. I don't know if that really answered the
No, I
question,
think it
but
does. I'm actually I pinged on the whole journaling thing. So I I have anxiety. I don't know if people realize this. I do, but I always felt that like words, if you put it out there, it suddenly becomes real instead of actually just talking about the anxiety. So how do you utilize journaling as part of your self-acceptance in the sense of like when you vent, are you just like, are you saying all the things that you are afraid of, that like you are a failure, that, you know, everything sucks and that it's my fault and all of that? Or how do you approach venting when you write it down?
I do that. So
Wow.
I didn't used to. I think I've, you girls in therapy.
Hmm.
We've been trying to do all these things.
Hmm.
Love that. Love that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But no, I also so I have an anxiety disorder, and so it's just like I'm anxious all the time about
Hmm.
everything. And I realized that like keeping it in sucks. We don't love
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Talking about it with other people isn't always the best way of coping, at least for me. I feel like it
Hmm.
doesn't always help.
Yeah.
Um, I like the aspect of journaling just because it's like this is something that no one's gonna see. I never have to even look back on it if I don't want to. I
Hmm.
just need to get these thoughts out of my brain and
Hmm.
onto paper so like I can get that negative energy somewhere
Hmm.
instead of trying to like keep it inside. And so I feel like again, if I'm journaling about like heavy negative topics and kind of just like going down that route, I also try to afterwards either do a nice like self-care activity or do
Hmm.
some gratitudes or affirmations just to balance it out a little bit. It doesn't always help like immediately,
Yeah.
but I think overall and like long term it's been pretty beneficial.
One thing that we do struggle with, especially since we put a lot of ourselves into the public eye, that we often feel, and I already mentioned this, but we often feel that we can't be honest about the wholeness of our humanity. And it's truly an act of bravery and defiance, because I know that YouTube and just the internet in general can be a very cruel place, with not only just sharing where you're at, from teens having to be loud and just like figuring out their opinions, and then we also have this thing where we live in a very racist, very sexist reality, and the experiences from women, from LGBTQIA people, from BIPOC, it's like you have to be very careful, because it's dangerous to not only share the things that you're going through that are impactful in a harmful way, but also the things that you celebrate. And so I want to hear, where or why has it been important for you to share publicly like this whole range of things that you're going through with your self-acceptance? You've talked about POTS. You've talked about, we can actually get into the whole story, because I don't think I know this story, about how somebody came into Twitter, like not came into Twitter, came onto your YouTube live stream and started like talking smack about your hair for some
Yeah.
reason. And you were like, people who are bigger and better than you have tried to like talk about my hair, and they did not win. And then you also talked about your journey to body image self-acceptance with if this is a little uncomfy, just let me know, but like with weight fluctuations, because I'm currently going through that too, and it's really hard when we live in a society that shames any form of body imperfection with weight fluctuation. So
Hate it.
why has it been super important to share just that wide range to not only Twitter, but YouTube, and just the content you make and just your everyday life?
I think it's so important to share. I mean, at least I feel like it is for me. I ultimately, at the end of the day, I just want to help people and I want people to feel less alone.
Mm-hmm.
I might not be able to do that for everybody, but if like one person kind of comes into a stream or a video and is like, "Hey, I relate," or "I don't feel as like isolated anymore," that's
Mm-hmm.
huge. And I feel like if I were to not talk about these things, I would be holding back from like potentially helping somebody else who's going through the same thing. We all, I
Mm-hmm.
think, go through obviously so many struggles just living,
Mm-hmm.
existing. And so I feel like any way to feel less alone and to kind of help to normalize that kind of struggle,
Mm-hmm.
it's so beneficial and I think it's really important. Oh yeah, do you want to get into the hair thing?
Sure. Yeah, go for it. Tell the
Oh,
hair story. Tell the
the
hair
hair.
story.
So I mean it's happened a couple times. The one that kind of sticks
I'm sorry. Who am I taking a bat to the kneecaps? Who comes into somebody's stream talking about somebody's body? Like seriously, y'all.
I get like your hair looks stupid and I'm like, "Okay, bye." Like what do you want me to say to that? I don't know. I always am like, "Listen, I've been way more mean like to myself about my hair than anybody could ever be." So it doesn't really phase me that much, but it's just like the audacity that these people have. Um But it was do you remember when the, like, inclusive natural hairstyles came out in Animal
Hmm.
Crossing?
So excited. So
So
beautiful
excited.
too. Yeah.
Listen, I was hyped. That
Hmm.
slowly dwindled after some comments on my video where people were kind of like, "You're not allowed to wear that. Like, you can't wear that
What?
hairstyle. Like, this is appropriation, and you can't wear that, and you can't." I was calling like, the little bun hairstyle, I thought it was
Yeah.
so cute, like, it's the Afro puffs,
Uh-huh.
but, I was calling it the Pico hairstyle because I was like, "They're Pico buns like my favorite character, like, how cute, I could match." And people were pressed in my comments about that, and they were like, "You can't call it that, you can't wear that, you can't" all this stuff, like, saying that the hair was not for me. That one did bother me a little bit because I was like, "What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? It's literally do you see my hair? It matches. I don't know." But so that was like the main thing where I was kind of just like confused about what people were saying. That kind of also like coincided with a lot of talk about my skin color. Someone
Yeah.
someone specifically was like, "You have a very confusing skin color," which like I didn't know how to respond because I was like, "I don't know what that means." Um, sorry, I guess like yeah, it was that video. I kept it up. I did end up deleting a lot of the comments because people were like not very nice. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was
Wow.
definitely it was a wild ride for sure.
So, I had this conversation with Kay from K Daisy when we were just talking about the how Animal Crossing and gaming in general was kind of like a time capsule where she can go back to certain points of her life. And I am always very conscientious that I don't want to typecast my co-hosts of like, if I'm going to have a person of color, we're going to talk about race, because it's a very important experience because we've unfortunately in a white society have made it that way. But it really did call to question how we approach representation in content creation and the fact that, Kay was excited that there was going to be, quite frankly, characters that looked like her in Animal Crossing, and the fact that hairstyles and hair textures and freckles is so important for people to really become immersed in the experience. And I think it's such a shame that that's still not enough, because here people are coming in are like, you're confusing, and I'm like, well, she's Siana, get over it. And it's like, and it's so wild to me because I do remember that conversation about how, hairstyles and hair textures were like, well, only people of color and only certain people of color can have these hair textures, not realizing that there's a wide range of ethnicities that have very curly hair or, a certain experience with their bodies and with their skin color. And so it's so wild to me that there's still even more gatekeeping for a person of color to not be allowed to represent it the way that it means to them. I want to be respectful when I ask this question, so please call me out if it's not. Did it feel like you were being like there was gatekeeping with other people of color in the comment section about your experience as being a person of color?
I think there were, again, it wasn't like a ton of comments,
Mhm.
but there were a few.
Mhm.
Um, one of them was a person of color, and the other ones I'm pretty sure were not.
Mhm.
So it was just weird coming from like both sides and having
Yeah.
like it just felt like in that situation I was not gonna win with these people, and
Mhm.
that was okay with me. It's just so weird to have a video where I am clearly so excited about these
Yeah.
new hairstyles. I'm excited my character can finally look like me. We've never had
Yeah.
that before in Animal Crossing, so I feel like it was a
Yeah.
huge deal. And then
Mhm.
have people kind of come in and be like, "No, you can't feel that way. No, you can't use this. No, you can't do this."
Mhm.
It was so weird. It also, like, I could understand if I, like, maybe didn't have my face cam on, they couldn't really see me or couldn't,
Mhm.
my hair was down, like, it was a weird experience because I don't think I expected that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I did not expect that at all, especially just based on, like, my just hair. It's always been a huge topic that everyone likes to talk about just in real life, and they're like, "Oh my god, your hair's so curly, da 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 da." So I was like, "Oh, cool, curly hair in game. I'm there." I did
Mhm.
not expect to get pushback of like, "Actually, you can't do this."
Well, actually. So
Well, actually.
it and it's so hard because it's something that I always think back with Gia from Gia Kimchi, where we were talking about ableism and content creation in the grind, and how it was very crucial to not only raise BIPOC voices or marginalized or multiply marginalized voices when they talk about the things that have brought harm to them, but also the things that have brought to celebration. And so it sounds to me that your experience with celebrating what makes you unique, what makes you Siana, was somehow impactful for somebody's self acceptance, where they still have a part of their journey where they are coming to terms with the fact that their hair type, their skin color had brought them much pain, not because of who they are, but because of society. And I'm really curious, and if you don't have to be like an expert in this, but I do think we should have a conversation in general of like what happens when our representation of self acceptance has pushback. And it's not because you did anything wrong, it's because it's clearly it's hit somebody in the heart feels, and they don't know how to react to that. So aside from those being an experience, like, and it hurt, it sounded like it hurt, how did you come to terms with your celebration being, I don't want to say you caused harm to people, but like being a cause of like, no, you can't do that because, blah, 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 blah.
I think especially, like, recently, so I don't know if I've talked about this on stream. I don't know if I've
Hmm.
ever, like, if you've heard it, whatever. I used to get my hair, like, chemically straightened. I
Hmm.
would, like, make sure to, like, relax it and, like, make sure my texture was, like, not showing and that, like, so it's been, like, a long journey with my hair.
Yeah.
It's been natural like this for about, like, 5 or 6 years now. So I
Hmm.
feel like I've definitely, like, before I even posted that video, before anything to do with, like, the channel, I already kind of accepted and been like, "This is me. This is what I have, and that's it. I'm kind of done trying to change it." And
Hmm.
essentially, it was like a way to make myself smaller too, and so it's like, because this is not small, like, it bothered me, um,
Hmm.
and I kind of got to a place where, like, I'm done shrinking myself to make other people more comfortable, and I am ready to just kind of embrace and accept what I have, who I am, what we're doing here.
Hmm.
And so, I think when when the pushback kind of happened, I kind of just thought back to, we're not making ourselves smaller for these people. Like, if they want to kind of argue and have this whole negative mindset around this and be so bothered by the fact that I am wearing a hairstyle in game, which ultimately it's a game.
Hmm.
Like, it doesn't really matter, like, it's not that serious, like, and if it's really, like, if it's bothering them, that says more about them as a person, but I'm not going to sit here and, like, mull over it and take it to heart because I've already kind of done the work, I think, to get out of that mindset, and it was bothersome because I think it was just kind of it was unexpected and it was,
Mhm.
quite frankly, annoying, like, just to kind
Mhm.
of put up with that, like, no one wants to put up with that, but I kind of did see it as more of, like, they are probably struggling with, like, some aspect of themselves, and this is
Yeah.
why they're acting out and kind of, like, projecting, so I kind of just, like, took that with, like, a grain of salt, and it's like, they're struggling, and I hope they get to a place where they're not anymore.
I got chills, honestly, when you were talking about that you were done making yourself smaller for people. And that I think is a very common thing for people with uteruses specifically because, small is not only, preferred with regards to body types and how it's promoted as a form of beauty and aesthetics, but I do think that hair is the first act of defiance for a lot of women who have curly texture because I can only imagine how much time and money and effort and emotional like you having to come to terms with a lot of changing yourself so that society doesn't like focus on you in particular. But the opposite is that because you went on this journey to hair acceptance and body acceptance, it's like you are loud in a really amazing way. And I know that the term loud can be very harmful because people of color, specifically women of color, are often called loud in a very mean, derogatory way. I don't mean it that way, and I apologize if it comes off that way. But
No,
just
I
like
didn't.
I really am curious, and I know that you can't speak for all women of color, BIPOC people about how it's from what I've been hearing is that hair is like the start of self-acceptance, of like really embracing your curls and your texture and, as you said, really embracing the vibrancy and the loudness of how it really is just in your face in a really beautiful way. So has that really applied to your channel as well for self-acceptance? Is that your approaches of like, I'm not going to be small because of whatever insecurity I have or what people tell me. How is that also applied to your channel?
I think yeah, I think it's definitely bled over, and I'm
Hmm.
trying to I think it's also helped, putting it online and, um, again, I touched on this earlier, but getting people who will be like, that "You're the only person I've seen who has, like, the same hair as me," or, like,
Hmm.
it's such a small thing for someone to say, but I know that, like, it means so much. I feel like having that representation in just, like, people you watch or, like, different,
Hmm.
like, cartoons, shows, movies,
Yeah.
whatever, I feel like that representation is super important.
Hmm.
Um, so getting to be that for somebody just because they're watching Animal Crossing videos is
Hmm.
wild, and it's just like, I definitely could have used that when I was younger just to
Yeah.
have, like, someone to look up to and be like, "Hey, look, she does it. Maybe I don't have to go $200 every couple of weeks to go get my hair straightened chemically."
Is it
Um,
every 2 weeks?
it wasn't. It was, like, I think I was supposed to go in every 8 weeks. I did not because it was expensive. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So it's we'd go every few months, but it was, like, just a lot of upkeep. It was very
Yeah.
damaging. It was expensive. It
Yeah.
was too much. So, yeah, when I got married, I asked my husband, I was like, "Do you care if I, like, do the natural thing?" He's like, "I literally like your hair no matter what, so, like, it's fine." So that helped a lot. So I have just had it like this since, but,
Yeah.
um, I think growing up I'm 25, so I think, like, just, like, the shows and stuff I used to watch, we didn't have that much.
Hmm.
I feel like now with it's a lot better for different
Hmm.
representation of just varying people, like, just varying the way people are looking, their attributes, their qualities, everything is different,
Hmm.
and I feel like kids can turn on the TV and you're like, "Oh, look, like, I see a portion of myself in this
Hmm.
character." I didn't get that too much as a kid, um, and so I think it's important f if I can kind of have that sort of an impact on somebody, um, that's more than I could ask for, and I think it makes, like, the whole thing kind of, like, worthwhile because it's like it kinda comes first full circle for some I don't know why it just feels very full circle. It's a
Hmm.
full circle moment. I can't say that. It's a
Mm.
full circle moment. I don't know, it just it's cool. I'm still, I think, in the process, especially in real life, walking around also, this is, like, tame right now. I, like, just did it right before the podcast. A lot of the time it's bigger, it's wilder, it's, and in real life, people do stare and you
Mhm.
walk into places and they look at you or they feel like they could talk to you and be like, "My friend's boyfriend, whatever, has this kind of hair. What?" And so it's just like it's very much like a statement
Mhm.
that you're kind of making. So in real life, it's a bit more difficult, I think, to embrace and to accept. But I feel like starting on the channel and starting to do that more is it's definitely helpful. I hope for others, but also for me as well.
It sounds similar to what Raven from Froggy Crossing had mentioned, that a lot of the aesthetics behind her channel was about healing your inner child. And I think, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's a lot of healing where it comes to facing the things that you didn't get to have as a younger person, where you had representation on the screen that wasn't tokenized, or it wasn't just the stereotyped version of your experience as a person. And it really is so startling to me, because I remember that there was this person on who commented on this from Angry Coconut's video about how someone had said it's really great to see a queer POC person be so successful on YouTube. Like, I wish I had this when I was younger. And this white person was like, it's not because he's queer or POC that he's just successful. And I'm like, but he can be celebrated because somebody gets to see his personal self-acceptance of being unabashedly himself, because for so long you have been told to sit down, shut up, and be small, and straighten your hair, and be, white but not white, and have less rights. And it's so mind-boggling to me that Kay, who is a couple of, who is a generation older, was still talking about it. And the fact that you said that as a young person you didn't have that it's startling. It's awful. Like, I know I'm
It's
laughing, but it's awful. Like, I can only imagine the pain of having to really be the person that you wish that you could see on screen. And I don't mean pain in like a super negative way, but that there must be a lot of grieving there.
to an extent, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird thing. I think especially because like I also like when I was younger, TV shows, it was like three different skin types.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like just because of like the different ethnicities that I am, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't fall into just one of those like categories. So it's like I
Yeah.
look like this person plus like there's a lot of stuff that kind of, especially when I was younger, it was hard for me to be like, well, I don't really fit into any of these categories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that definitely like just kind of lasted growing up. It was not ostracizing, but
Mm-hmm.
like a little bit isolating just because it's like that was happening in real life too, where people were just
Yeah.
like, people don't know what to say, don't know. I got a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like, you look very exotic. And so, and like I grew up with such a weird, like, yeah, yeah.
That's gross. I'm
I got
so
that.
sorry.
I got that that was all I ever heard was that you look that, and I was just like, it just made me feel, like, very isolated and, like, that just meant different. It
Mm-hmm.
meant different, it meant not normal, it meant, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And so it was
Alien
like,
and foreign. Yeah.
yeah, and I was just like, I don't, is that a nice thing to say to a person? Like, I don't think so, but you know what?
No.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I think now, just in, in 2023 in the space that we have, there is a lot more representation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it also helps that, like, not all of, our content before was just, like, TV,
Mm-hmm.
movies, that's it. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like now on the internet, you get to see so many different types of people, so many different, um, just genres of videos, genres of anything, um, and the people behind that, and I think it's so cool now that, not only kids, but also, like, us as adults, we get to
Mm-hmm.
kind of either take part in or see other people who are the same as us, who are different from us, who are the complete opposite of us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much, that you can find on the internet, and I think it's so great that, kids, teens, whatever now can can get that, like, just so it's so accessible to them,
Oh yeah,
and
no,
I
I
think it's so
agree.
cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm always it boggles my mind how truly enriching humanity can be and how, just the very day to day can be so different and unique. And I think that's a really cool shift into content where it is the slice of life where we get to see people being people. Content creators are not on these pedestals where we are these demigods of like, look at my algorithm based content, leave a like and subscribe or I shall smite thee. Like, it's truly us being us. And I'm I would love to hear, if you have the spoons for it, if you could give somebody, anybody who is starting to document self-acceptance as part of their content, what are the lessons learned that you have from that?
I feel like, and this might sound kind of weird, but it's like lean into that uncomfortable feeling that you have
Mm-hmm.
about vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not everyone's at a place where they are able to do that, and I was there for a long time, but I
Yeah.
feel like if you lean into it, if you accept it, haha, if you kind of accept it and I'm very much of oh my god, there's a therapy type where it's DBT,
Mm-hmm.
dialect,
Yep. Dialectical behavior therapy.
yes, and that's very much about like not like the yin and yang, the good and the
Mm-hmm.
bad, how that
Mm-hmm.
can exist together. And so I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, um, at least for me, what really helped was like kind of telling myself and walking myself through the feelings of like, this is really uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be beneficial to other people and also myself in the long run. Um, and so I think leaning into that sort of mindset of like, yes, it maybe it sucks. Maybe you hate it at first. Maybe like it's not
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. You feel weird about it, and it can turn into this like beautiful thing where you are relating with and normalizing just different things that you're going through and building this community of people who can relate in some way, no matter on like what level that is. I feel like I don't know. I think the and is so important
Mm-hmm.
in doing it. Yeah.
My therapist also does the yes ands because she'll be like, yes, it sucks, or like, yes, it could be worse, and it really freaking sucks. And so having to approach emotions, especially in the Western mindset where we have to be very quiet about the things that we're going through, it I say this time and time again that, the content that you and Raven and Peyton bring is truly an act of defiance, and Kay as well, an act of defiance to really just standing up and being like, I'm not going to be quiet. I am very aware of where I'm at, and I'm accepting of where I'm at. And sometimes it really sucks. And sometimes it's a great celebration of existing. And Siana, truly, I'm just in awe. Like whenever I recall just thinking back to my previous Gamers Gab episodes where self-acceptance is a very big part of the conversation. And it I honestly, like, I'm going to be sitting on what you've said for days because of just the impact that you just being you and being unabashedly yourself is truly beautiful. So sorry to like completely just get all emotional over here,
Oh,
but
you made
I
me cry.
yeah, go ahead.
It means a lot. It means a lot. It just means a lot. So thank
Is
you.
I know that self-acceptance because I'm sorry that I'm referencing other content creators, but I know
Yeah.
that I had asked Peyton about the fact that she started her content revolving around having stage 4 endometriosis, and that I know that that's a very big part of her content, but that's not where she's going with the trajectory. Like, it's about being Peyton, it's about Peyton's corner. So with Siana Crossing, where it's very much as a come as you are, I don't want to ask if you feel that the self-acceptance focus is limiting, but are you going to be building on that with how you feature and describe your journey?
I think it's always gonna play a part.
Mm-hmm.
I want my content to feel as like inclusive and authentic is also like a really big thing. And
Yeah.
I just want it to feel as authentic and real and for as many people to be able to relate as possible. And so I think if sharing different things about self-acceptance and sharing different struggles and victories and that kind of stuff, if that's gonna kind of build up that part of the community, then it's definitely something that I'm gonna bring with me. I don't think my content revolves like around it. Like it's like, you come in and you're just like self-accept, like but I feel like as an undertone, I feel like it's important to me, and I want to continue just having discussions about it and letting it kind of guide my content in a way that just feels feels authentic. Yeah.
I know that we talked about being in therapy, but it does sound like is there some outside work that you do outside of YouTube that also incorporates these sort of teachings? I mean, if this is too personal for me to ask, I
No, it's
can.
okay. Like,
Do you have another job outside of YouTube? Is basically what I'm
I
asking.
don't.
You don't?
I don't.
This is your job. Wow. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. So like you are able to utilize a lot of what you've incorporated with your life with therapy and really putting a lot of it onto YouTube. That's incredible. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's yeah. It's interesting for sure. Like it's a wild thing, but
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I'm super grateful that that just the
Wow.
community in general, obviously, as you know, like this
Mm-hmm.
the Animal Crossing content creator community is crazy
It's
and
bopping. I
in a
know.
good
Like
way.
we are just,
So good.
oh my God. I am still just in awe that as I said, the benefit of the COVID pandemic has been that one, we've realized that humans cannot function on the industrial concept of productivity every day, all the time, from until the time we die. And two, that emotional honesty and vulnerability has become part of our language in Western cultures, which is unheard of up until this point. And so I really do think that your time on YouTube has been truly beneficial and for so many people. And it's just going to continue to set the standard of self-acceptance is hard. And you don't have to be over the top. You don't have to be, with millions of subscribers to matter. And you still bring something to the table. And that's just incredible. That's incredible, Siana. So we have one more question besides the most important question, but I know that Siana Crossing is a play on Animal Crossing, and I'm really curious to hear if there were self-acceptance themes in other games that you would suggest playing for people who would like to really get uncomfortable or get in on that.
I think, and this is a very like not vain, but like an external sort of
Mm-hmm.
externally, I think the games that have really helped me just accept, hair, body, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sims 4 and Coral Island
I
because
know.
because of the customization options.
Yeah.
Um, I think they're great. I can make myself like, and I've
Mm-hmm.
never been able to do that in games before where it's like, that's me. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
me. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like obviously like those are like not like the most like the deepest games. Coral
Mm-hmm.
Island's really good, but like Sims 4 is not like the most deep,
Mm-hmm.
like life-changing
Yeah,
game
it's
you'll
as
ever
deep as
play.
you make it. Yeah. And setting people
Right.
on fire. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I kind of love that. But I just think the customization, like the Create a Sim and then the customization in Coral Island,
Mm-hmm.
I think every game should have that. I think it's beautiful. I think it's amazing, and I think
Mm-hmm.
I love it, especially for the skin color
Yeah.
and body type and like hair textures. I just think they are setting the standard that I think every game should have, so
It
that more
should
people
be.
can, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so more people can kind of like like just it makes it more accessible and just more
Mm-hmm.
relatable for everybody. So
I would also probably would love to see more games where it like the player that you have to play is a person of color because Spiritfarer, although I'm not Stella, it is truly one of my most favorite games of the year because it really does. It talks about death in a really beautiful way, but it also talks about the experience of not being white. And so it's like it's obviously very fictionalized and it's very, whimsical, but I think it is a very important moment to sit with being somebody who is so opposite of you and still finding value. And I don't want to, not still finding, but finding incredible value with what it means to be somebody who is so different, and really coming to terms with that, because that's life, you know. Not everyone is a copy of you, but different, you know. So yeah. So highly recommend. And also Coral Island with all the hotties, let me tell you. Oh, I know. Ooh. Who is your favorite, by the way?
Mark. You?
Yes, I love Mark. I am willing to share him with everybody. Oh my God. Yeah, no, I did a tier list of like all the dateables. It's like him and Pablo. Favorites. Favorites. Anyway, got off topic.
Did so good with them.
I know. Good. Oh, I know. Well, I followed the artist back when he was on his DeviantArt days, and I was just like, yeah, no, his art is incredible. Like, incredible.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, wait, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I was just like, wait, I know this art. Oh my God. Yeah, because he had turned Disney princes into like semi-realistic. And it was so cool. Yeah, he did such a good job. Anyway, got off topic. Siana, as always, it was an incredible delight just to talk with you in general, but getting to know you on this journey, I am going to be like floating for days because of how incredible of a person you are. So there's a couple of things we have to ask first and foremost. How can we aggressively promote you? Where can we find you on the interwebs? What can we do to help you grow?
Me trying to remember all my usernames. Okay, I am I'm Siana Crossing everywhere. Okay. I'm at Siana Crossing on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. That's it.
You do have a second channel, don't you?
I do, but it's kind of dead. I haven't posted in like 8 months.
Okay, well then, never mind. Well, I was wondering if like you wanted me to promote that because it was more of like the personal side of like the non-gaming content for Siana, right?
It was, and now I'm just kind of doing that like on this channel, making it like more of a variety.
Yeah, I know that we had like this, there was a thing of like, you have to separate your content and have different things. And I'm like, nah, just have one. It's fine. It's fine.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. And so the final question, perhaps the most important question of Gamers Gab, is who would you like to see on this podcast, and what would the topic be?
I thought for so long about this. I was trying to answer this question. I feel like you've had a lot of my like my favorites, and like the people who I would have been like, this person. You had them on already, which is super cool. I'm not gonna say one person, one couple I would love to see is Dongela on Gamers Gab. I feel like them talking about how gaming and like content creation has impacted their relationship or their bond in any way.
Ooh, I like that.
And like what positives have come like because of that.
That's a really cool idea because I gave my husband the streamer bug, and so I got him set up for his own channel, and it's been really cool to talk with him about content. It's truly a really building experience as a relationship. So I would love to talk with him about that. That's a really cool idea. So
it just sounds really interesting because it's like
that is something that I would have never considered actually. So thank you. So Dongela, if you are watching, come on to Gamers Gab, please and thank you. Yes, thank you. So friends, as always, thank you so much for watching. Do your part, support Siana, go hang out. Her content is always lovely. Your voice is just like music to my ears, Siana. I'm sorry that I'm like being all like, but no, seriously, it's just her content's incredible. Her presence is amazing and all of that jazz. So I'll be sure to leave all of the links in the description below. And with that, friends, we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much, Artsy.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye.